This is Vince Russo's The Brand.
Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Tragedy. I am your co-host, JP John Paz from the Two-Man Power Trip. Joining me, of course, is the Dad Bod God, the Dad Bod Destroyer, the Colonel himself, Mr. Piers Austin, and, of course, the suntan Superman himself, Angel, the Baldy Angel Medina. What's going on, fellas? How you doing?
Oh, doing good, brother. Doing good.
Today's topic, of course, at hand, case number 101, Hey Yo, a tribute here to Mr. Scott Hall, who has just passed away, only 63 years old. But welcome in, gentlemen.
Absolutely. We're going to definitely talk about Scott Hall, one of the greatest legends out there, the best heel, best promos, funny as hell. We're going to talk about his life, his careers, his demons. We're just going to be definitely just celebrating his life instead of focusing more on his tragedy, but definitely just bring up some things to make people aware of what goes on in the wrestlers' lives that make them the way they are. You know what I mean? So, oh man, Scott Hall, great guy. Go ahead, Pierce.
Man, Scott Hall to me was the guy who made being the bad guy cool, really. You know what I mean? Like,
do you consider him or Austin like being the bad guy cool? It's kind of hard.
I think he was kind of like the originator, because it was like while he was a heel and like in a certain aspect of it, it was something so cool about him. Like just his presence, his walk to the ring. He was just like, Scott Hall was a cool motherfucker. And it was just portrayed on screen. Even when he was a heel, he still came across cool as fuck to me.
What do you think? But what do you think if it was a clap meter and we have fans out there and they're like, who you think is the coolest? What would the clap like if they both like Scott Hall or Steve Austin, or how would they level out? Do you think?
Dude, realistically, Stone Cold will get the bigger pop. But when you're talking about being a cool motherfucker, Scott Hall, bro, all day, every day. Stone Cold, Steve Austin.
Without Scott Hall even existing, I don't think you'd get that cool Stone Cold Steve Austin character, because if the NWO doesn't happen and he doesn't set it off, we're probably not even talking about Austin and that character. They probably would have went off in a completely different direction. They had to do it because he was getting so over. They had to use Austin. You know what I mean? If it wasn't for WCW and NWO, which set off the Attitude Era, which set off Austin in motion, I don't think you'd get the cool Stone Cold. So Austin's definitely getting the bigger pop, but Hall was way cooler to me anyway. I just think Hall was friggin' the epitome of cool for a wrestling guy.
Right on. I mean, like I said, just curious, like how would they measure up with each other in regards to that stuff. So yeah, absolutely, you're absolutely correct in regards to the cool meter.
One thing I found interesting about Scott Hall's past, though, was he was actually charged with, I think it was actually classed as manslaughter, but
he killed somebody. Yeah,
he killed some guy, like because he was working security at a club. And then there was a gun got involved, and he took the gun off the guy and killed the guy.
So I was just talking to the guy, Oliver Bateman, who did his obituary for The Ringer. And he's like the guy you go to when you want to, either Meltzer or him, Dave Meltzer or Oliver, you go when you want to read this stuff. So go to The Ringer. He's got a great obit on Scotty Hall, and he has the story, like the real story. So Hall, I guess maybe a little flirtatious, but he's the bouncer at this bar, 19-year-old girl who's married to a 37-year-old owner of the bar. And the guy had a gun and he was going to kill Hall for flirting with his girl, or really the girl flirting with Hall. Hall at this point looks like $1 million. It's 1983 and he's 6'7", he's jacked to the nine. He looks like a superstar. So obviously she's probably gravitating towards him, and I'm sure he's seeing this 19-year-old girl. I'm sure she's pretty and interested. So this guy was going to kill him. So it was either kill or be killed. And he turned the gun around and he killed the guy. But an interesting side note on that, the guy actually got away with murder the week before. So he's been known to act on people. Yeah, he's been known to kill people, the guy. So the guy is really, if you think about it, was a murderer. He killed the guy who was about to murder him. So to me, he carried that with him forever. And I think that's something, when you kill somebody, to PTSD or whatever you want to say, it's going to stick with you. It really stuck with him. And I think it led to his alcoholism. Plus his dad was an alcoholic. I think and maybe inherent. It was kind of followed him through in a family. Maybe he inherited those addiction traits. But if he didn't kill that guy, obviously the guy had the gun. It's his gun. He was going to kill Scott. So he had to do it.
Well, the funny thing is that this happened in 1983 in Orlando, Florida, and Scott Hall was charged with second-degree murder. But the thing was is that he shot the guy in his head with his own gun. So basically, that was just kind of like, wow, that's kind of, I mean, like if you're
Self-defense.
struggling, yeah. But it's funny, like when they specifically state like he shot him in the head with his own gun. Usually, when you shoot somebody in an altercation in the chest, and in the back, whatever. But it was like fucking his own head was like, and I'm not saying executioner style. It's just the way, like, how did the fuck he get him in the head? Were they fighting? He stuck it to his throat and shot him.
Yeah.
So I was always wondering about that. But he claimed it was done in self-defense, and which again, that's awesome, that Scott Hall, did that in self-defense. It's just that but the thing about the alcoholism and stuff, my dad was an alcoholic, my grandfather was an alcoholic, but I'm not an alcoholic. So it's kind of hard to say it's a trait thing because again, it's just I think it's I'm not trying to like stand on the podium or anything, but it's just I'm just always wondering why I was never an alcoholic if it was in my bloodline, but I don't have that trait.
Do you think, Angel, because like you growing up knowing that your father was an alcoholic, your grandfather was an alcoholic, maybe, and I'm just not to get off topic here or be like psychiatrist here or anything, but do you think maybe it was like a subconscious thing for you going, you know what, alcohol doesn't mix well with my family. I'm not going to allow myself to go down that road. And did you always have control over alcohol? Like, was that your
I don't
thing?
know because in the 70s, and I just remember, and I'm not saying I was in the 70s, I was just a little boy. I remember, I mean, it was fashionable back then where, they were rolling joints in front of me. I remember uncles doing cocaine in front of me, which again, at that time, I didn't know what they were doing, because I didn't know what it was. But the thing was, is that I never smoked weed. I never did. I mean, besides that Coke story I told you, but I never touched the stuff. So I don't know, man. It never dawned on me to ever say, you know what? The only time I ever got fear of like ending up is wrestling, seeing the boys drop dead, seeing the drugs. And I told myself, I remember as a grown man saying, like, I don't want to go down that path and be like that. And that's why I never touched the stuff. But again, maybe it's just a mental thing. I don't know. I can't really explain it. I just never thought about doing it. I don't know. My addiction was women, fat rats and partying and stuff.
Fat rats, huh?
Fat rats and partying and stuff. But nothing. Like I said, Scott Hall. Everybody has their own demons. Everybody has But I just always think that's an excuse. If you have the will and you have the desire to beat something or avoid something, you can do it. Because trust me, there's a lot of times I'm stressed to fucking gill, and that's what I'm saying. I drink, but I know when to like, I ain't gonna drink anymore, or I take a week or 2 weeks off. But I don't get belligerently drunk. I just get nice and toasty and just relax and watch Walking Dead or something,
Yeah. But like Scott Hall, like let's go back to like obviously the PTSD. Like you go through, and at this stage in 1983, he would have been what, 20 something years old. Like to go through and to have that experience, I think it would mentally fuck you up if you were not like from a, like, I don't want to say from a background of killing, but if you're not from a violent background or something like that, where it's like a natural progression for you to go down that road, like, a gangster or a street person or a criminal or something like that. But like for someone like Scott Hall, who was like an athlete, who was a professional wrestler, who was someone, who wasn't necessarily like a gangbanger or a criminal or something like that. So, I think it could have been, man, a big part of like going down into alcoholism and also drug abuse.
For sure.
I mean, like I said, everybody's different, and it affects everybody different. Sorry, John, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I just feel like when that happened to him, I don't know, it set off something mentally where he maybe relived it all the time, and that just was like, oh, if I drink and get drunk, I can forget it. You know what I mean? Just forget that ever happened. And then when he's alone, maybe he relives it again, and it's like, oh fuck it, I need to drink.
Well,
and then all of a sudden you're addicted.
But look at this perspective. I mean, and again, just from the outside looking in, but look at Jake Roberts, look at his Sam Houston, look at other people. I mean, they're not pedophiles, as far as we know. I mean, they say that pedophilia is again, it's a mental trait. It's an inherited. They say it's an illness. It's a mental thing, just like serial killers. But if you look at it from,
also,
I mean, nobody.
Also, you have to understand. Yeah, you talk about someone like Jake the Snake Roberts, who was, the son of Grizzly Smith, who went down and was, sexually abused and everything like that. how he coped was pilling himself out, getting drunk, as and
Same with Sam Houston.
Yeah, but again, if it was a trait, if it's something that's inherited, just like alcoholism, just like any other thing, it's some people that's what pedophiles say is an excuse. My dad abused me, and like it's a mental thing. Again, I am not a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and I don't know this thing. I'm just looking at it like, you know.
A lot of times they do say that people that are victims of being abused sexually will then go on to become predators themselves, but that's not always the case.
That's what I'm saying. That gives you that factor. You can't use it as an excuse. But anyway, I mean, we're going off track in regards to the story. It's just that's what my thoughts are in regards to that. But yeah, I mean, Scott Hall dealing with PTSD. Everybody deals with their trauma differently. It affects
Mhm.
people differently. I don't know how it would affect me if I killed somebody or and stuff. It's just like taking a bad bump, like you're not afraid of heights and you take a bad bump from a high fall and then you get PTSD, you get that anxiety, like I can't do it. So it just affects everybody differently. I mean, look at Vic Grimes falling off that top. That motherfucker's probably like like the donkey in Shrek, just like because of that fall. But back then he was falling off heights like no problem. Maybe now he's like, I can't do it because of PTSD. So like I said, it affects people differently. Scott Hall had to, not embrace it, but just find another outlet to get away from,
Mm.
that type of mental issue that he was having. Again, just speculatory. John?
Feel like with him, I don't know, maybe if he got like a therapist or some psychiatric help early on, like after it happened, because apparently he didn't. Maybe like that could have helped him. I mean, who knows about the alcohol because he was on the
Well,
road so much anyway. He might have still developed it and still developed some of those demons, but that definitely did carry around with him. I don't know if maybe, I mean, or if that would even work seeing a doctor and talking. But I know, according to a couple documentaries, and I guess Jim Ross was saying it too, he didn't get the help he needed at the time that he should have gotten.
Well, just to answer that question for you, and it's just weird that I bumped into it last night on YouTube, watching a documentary about it. I bumped
Mhm.
into a Scott Hall panel with him, X-Pac, and Kevin Nash, and he was talking about why he didn't drink anymore and all that stuff. And he was saying that when he was in the hospital with double pneumonia, Dan Spivey, who was the ambassador for WWE for, drug addiction or something like that, came to visit him and took him to Texas to that's when he got that pacemaker put in and stuff like that. And he goes, hey, by the way, since we're in Texas, why don't we go over here and go to this mental clinic or a mental place and see what they can help you. And he was like, hey, yo, this shit ain't working for me. It didn't do anything. That's how he got that call from DDP. And he goes, well, since this fucking treatment didn't work out, I'm going to go to DDP. And that's when he went to DDP and stayed at DDP's house, which that's when he bought a house close to
Yeah.
DDP just to be by him. And that really helped him out. So, I didn't think he thought that would have helped him, the mental treatment or whatever. He said it was bullshit.
And that's the thing. Like he's a old school kind of guy, though, dude. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
his generation, dude, they're not going to psychiatry and
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
No, we don't. Because Johnny trained us that way. Johnny's like, don't be a pussy, be man up. It's a wrestling mindset. You don't go to psychiatrists. You don't go. You suck it up and just keep pushing forward. I mean, that's just how he trained us. It's just mental toughness. Again, but then you find
but
another
you know
an
what?
outlet.
Going out and seeking help, like that's the best thing for people. That's what's going to save
Depends.
lives.
Depends on the person. Like you said, Scott Hall felt that it wasn't for him. Depends on the
Yeah.
person. Sometimes it's a different outlet. Just because there's nothing wrong getting help. Absolutely.
Mm.
But if you feel like it doesn't work for you, then you got to find another way to get yourself fit. Friends, family, fucking doing puzzles, whatever. You find it doesn't fall in your lap. You have to like really soul search to see what will help you. Church, God, praying, becoming a Buddhist. Just a lot of people find different outlets to find that meditation. I mean, do you agree, John, or do you think I'm just like reaching?
Yeah, that'd be definitely different outlets, but I think that with Hall specifically, it's like, what outlet can you get? Because you're probably traveling 300 days a year. You're on the road all the time. You just think like, okay, I'll just go drink at night. and I'm probably in pain from taking bumps, and like you find other ways to kind of medicate yourself, which obviously has nothing to do with doctors, but you self medicate, and you're probably doing with alcohol and drugs and whatever else. So I feel like with him, maybe wrestling in the road, like Bret Hart just said, like for guys like them in that era, 300 days on the road, not very kind to them, and maybe not the best like medicine for themselves to do that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, with Scott Hall, I mean, like I said, you're right. He had to find an outlet. Like me, I loved being on the road because it was taking me away from the reality of the real world. Like when you're in the reality of now, I remember my ex used to tell me like, like, well, I used to be famous, and yeah, you hit that right on the head, used to be. But then when I go to the wrestling world, like when I left the house to go into shows, I was fucking not saying a wrestling god, but I was respected, and things were given to me. It's a different person in a
People
different
knew who
world.
you were.
Yeah.
Huh?
People knew who you were, and
Yeah, it was a different feeling, man. You felt appreciated, you felt loved, you felt that gratitude. But when you went home, oh, welcome back, motherfucker. PTSD. It was just bad. That's why I liked being on the road at that time. You know. But anyway, I mean, yeah, Scott. I mean, Scott, excuse me for cracking. Scott was I mean, he was an originator, man. It's Diamond Stud, and Cowboy Scott Hall with the big old Magnum PI mustache, looked like Magnum TA, but more jacked to the gills. I mean, which one do you think was the most charismatic? Not say charismatic. Which one popped out for you more, John or Pierce? Like, was it the Cowboy Scott Hall? Like, hey, that's fucking Magnum TA, or the Diamond Stud? He was swollen that one, but
to be
Diamond
honest,
Stud to me, I
that
was always like, "Holy shit, who this guy?" Like when he first came in WCW, and obviously I'm a young fan at this point, but I'm like, whoever this guy is, he's somebody because he is massive, like 6'7", obviously, but at that point he's probably 300 pounds. I mean, he was jacked to the nines.
I, you know what, that was probably before my time because we didn't really get much wrestling like that back then. I first saw Scott Hall when he was Razor Ramon Chico.
What year were you born? You're saying before my time. I'm just curious.
My time, but like
Australia getting
to me like
TV?
wrestling, yeah.
Australia wasn't. No, we weren't getting like early WCW like back then. We might
So
have been.
basically, right now you're getting like right now in syndication you're getting like Miami Vice. Like we finally got Miami Vice, like in Euro Trip. No, we got
Miami
right now we got
Vice.
Miami Vice.
Miami Vice, yeah.
Yeah.
No, like no.
That's
Well, obviously now I can go back and check out a lot of that stuff, and I have obviously done that since getting the network years ago. And like you get tapes as you get older, but like when it was actually happening back then, no, if it was on, it was probably in the middle of the night sometime.
Just curiosity, in Australia during that time when you were younger, were you getting like shows like World Class with their channels, or was it just strictly WWE and that was it during the like Saturday night?
We got WWF sparingly. Then like I think in the 80s maybe we'd get like superstars and stuff like that. The 90s, near the like 96 is when wrestling really sort of started popping off, where we could see it regularly every week, like with WW. 96, 97, just before the Attitude started to kick off.
Okay.
Yeah, so but no, look, I have gone back and watched that, but for me, I enjoyed the Diamond Stud probably more than the Cowboy Scott Hall.
Okay. Yeah, John, just curiosity, internationally was and like NWA, AWA, World Class. I mean, I know it was known around the world, but how far around the world? I know it was in England. I know that's when they went to Japan, they were known there. But going to like further countries, Africa, fucking Australia, Dubai, were they televised? I'm just curious.
Not as far as I know. I think that probably not until maybe the 80s or something, because I
Deep in the
know,
80s?
yeah, because I feel like
Okay, just curious.
globally, I feel like no, it wouldn't have been in a lot of those places. But obviously, Japan and England and stuff, yes. But those other places, probably not. It's funny though, when wrestling goes to those places, it's always like this random shows that are put together. You know what I mean? It's always just like they'll take guys from here or there, and then eventually WWF got around to working a lot of those places, or even WCW sometimes got around to working those rare countries and countries that didn't see a lot of wrestling. Nowadays, it's always like they pick different guys. It's almost like a small indie or a super indie, and they'll bring them over to a different country.
Because that's funny because using the football or soccer that we call it, like it's world known, but I don't know jack shit. I only know certain players that like because of how I felt like David Beckham. I only know him because he's married to one of the Spice Girls. Pele because he was on the fucking box of the Wheaties, and I remember that was when he was on the Wheaties box. And that's it, man. But if I say, to people who love soccer or football, they just be like, "How the fuck you don't know these people?" And I said, "It doesn't come over here. It's not embraced like you guys do it, But everywhere else is fucking like stadiums to the fucking ceiling, and rugby too."
There's this great site called Wrestle Map, and they tell you like where wrestling is like all over the globe, and you see like these random ass places that has wrestling. You're like, holy shit, they have wrestling there now, but they never had it before, or they only had WWF TV or WB TV. Like they only saw that, so it wasn't like they even knew. I mean, they kind of knew of wrestling, but they weren't as familiar with it. So it's weird seeing it pop up. But check out Wrestle Map. It's just like you're like, that place is wrestling. Like what the hell? But it's pretty new to them. Yeah, so it wasn't like as global as you'd think, but obviously a lot the big countries, England, Australia, obviously forever, going back to the original WCW back in Australia, like Dominic DeNucci, 50s, 60s, 70s era, like with a Jim Barnett of all people running the thing. But Japan obviously had it big time.
Yeah.
It's actually somewhat new to China too, which is interesting.
So just curiosity. Oh, sorry, guy. I was going to talk about the Razor Ramon. Like, when do you think?
Yeah, I was just going to say bring it back.
Yeah, go ahead. You go back. You go first, and
bring it back to Razor, Piers.
No, I was just going to say, just bringing it back to Razor Ramon, like that character, very, I think, loosely based off Tony Montana from Scarface.
In the beginning, yeah,
in the beginning, I think the accent was always there, but then obviously it evolved and became much more than what it is. And I think Scott Hall, really that character, it was, I think he started out being a heel, but he just got over and over and over as a babyface. And I think near the end of his tenure in WWF, he was kind of like, he was classified a heel, but I'd definitely probably put him more in that tweener stage.
And I think I remember watching that vignette when I was a kid. Because I remember it like it was yesterday. And I'm not gonna lie, when I saw it, I did the what the fuck, because my mindset was like, I was not thinking about Scarface at the time, but I was just like baffled a little bit, like this ain't gonna go over. I don't see it because that was the Doinks, the Mountie, the fucking Maximilian Moon shit. And when you're a kid, like this is garbage, or shooting fucking streamers at your fucking rest and stuff like that. But when I saw it, I was like very not confused, like I don't know, I'm not feeling it, and stuff. But then he just turned it into something he can do, and like he made it to that it fit him. But the vignettes was that Tony Montana and stuff, and Chico and all that stuff, and it was good. It was a little bit cheesy at the time.
I love
the great part. Oh, sorry, Pierce.
Oh, you go.
Okay.
I was going to say, I think the great part is that Vince historically, and I guess somebody tipped Hall onto it, never watched movies, didn't know pop culture references, didn't know really anything about like what was going on in the world as far as like TV, movies, film, stuff like that. He just didn't pay attention to it. So when he does the Scarface and he starts acting like Tony Montana and stuff, Vince has no clue what it is. He doesn't even know what he's doing, what he means. He's like, this guy, he's great. I love this character. Like,
so just curiosity.
No,
so you're telling me that all that stuff that was Scott Hall, because he was like, Chico, I want everything in the world, the line that he goes, Scarface. So it was him saying that shit and Vince didn't even know. I thought it was the fucking writers.
Yeah. No, that was all Hall. He laid out the character, and he knew Vince had no clue. So he thought Scott Hall was like this. Well, it is genius level, because Dusty would do that too. You take from the movies, you turn it into wrestling, and you make it your own. But Vince had no clues. Like, this guy, what an originator! This guy's a genius. This guy's, wow, I love this character. He had no clue it was Scarface. So apparently, there's at one point where they're at this meeting, and Tito Santana is like, I guess, going to the bathroom, or he sees him in the hallway or something. He's like, oh, I'm going back in with Vince. Vince wants like a name, but he wants me to be more Spanish. He said I look Spanish. The way I'm talking, he thinks I'm more Spanish. So, and then Tito Santana says, he goes, Ramon, because he wanted an R. He said, he goes, I want to be Razor, like Razor Ruddock, or like the cool boxing name, obviously. So he's like, I want to be Razor. He's like, what's an R, like Spanish name? And then Tito Santana said to him, Ramon. So Hall's like, I could be Razor Ramon. So he even made up his own name, his own catchphrase. He did all that stuff. And obviously Vince and Pat Patterson just like, and JJ Dillon at the time, I mean, they like absorbed it in. They're like, this is great. Nobody realized that he was really just ripping off Scarface, but making it his own, obviously. And then with the toothpick and the slicked hair and everything. But Vince had no idea. He didn't watch movies.
But
he had no clue.
It's funny. It's funny in regards to that story. It falls into the same as my story with the ECW, where Paul, when I first started there, he wanted me to be the Latin ref. And I was doing like this Kofi Kingston thing, like being Jamaican and shit. Because in the beginning, if you watch all the old stuff when I was the referee, I was talking, hey, amigo, and all this shit.
Yeah.
And then I was, but I hated it. I'm not lying to you. I was like, this is the most racist shit. They wanted me to be this fucking this ref. But I said, I need a job. So I'm doing this shit. But as you look at my career, if you watch it, I had to do it in the baldies, but as it went, I kind of like faded it away, like the Kofi Kingston, and I was never talking like that no more. Yeah, I used to say Papa and stuff, but that was the only thing that was left after I kind of like strained it to make it my own. But you watch it, it's freaking hysterical as like, hey, amigo, and all this shit. And I'm sitting there like, this motherfucker got me acting like this fucking, I'm Puerto Rican, but I don't have an accent, and I had to fake an accent to get over with the crowd. It was fucking hysterical.
Oh my God. But you know what? Like I did find, like when Razor Ramon made Scott Hall made his debut in WCW, and he came out and he cut that promo, and he's like, "You're right there, Angel." Just like pull out a fucking blade and fucking show.
Oh my fucking this is my letter opener. I was just gonna open the letter. But yeah, you were saying.
But like when he went to WCW and like he cut that promo when he first started, he had tinges of the accent there. But you know what? He wasn't saying, hey, this is who I am. He didn't mention WWF, didn't mention the name Razor Ramon. But the accent was slightly there. It wasn't full Razor, but it was like, you know what I mean? Like he went in and out on some words with it.
Yeah. Just curiosity. Do you think like, okay, just curious, like Tito Santana, you're bringing up Tito Santana, who are actually Hispanic. You got actual Hispanics working for the company, but you give an Hispanic gimmick to somebody who wasn't Hispanic. It's just like giving an actor, a deaf, a mute, you're playing the role, and you're like, hey, his name is, deaf, and why can't you use a real actor to do that? So did you think guys were like offended in regards to that they never...
No way, because Strongbow is there. The Italian, Chief Jay Strongbow, Jay Scarpa. Like, you know what I mean? It's just been going on forever, and I don't think anybody cared or whatever. Obviously, Tito didn't care. He gave him the name. So, I don't think anybody cared.
Yeah, but it's kind of like taking away a spot for somebody who, like, I don't know, like maybe he didn't care, but it's just funny. Maybe other wrestlers like, yo, I could have done that shit. I'm Hispanic,
Yeah, but look at fucking Scott Hall, 6'7", fucking 280, 290, shredded.
Yeah, he was making it anyway. Yeah, but the great character. But it's funny though. WWF, when they sued WCW saying that there was, the war was really WWF versus WCW, and Bischoff always like wisely said, no, they're just ex-WCW guys that came back and they're mad or whatever. The funny thing, and then Kevin Sullivan, which is great, would always say on the scripts, he sometimes would call them Razor and Diesel on his scripts or whatever when they're writing stuff out, and he would never, when WWF wanted like to see like their scripts, he would never show them that part because it would make them look obviously more guilty that they're stealing Razor and Diesel. But if you go back to Diamond Stud had the toothpick. Diamond Stud was doing that. Like Diamond Stud had a little bit of the accent. So he was always that character. He just didn't bring it out really until Razor. And then when he was Scott Hall, I don't think he could help himself from doing it. Eventually he would kind of go away from the accent, but I feel like he was that guy for so long. It just became him.
But you know what? I've thought like Scott Hall as well. He's a guy which is like very intelligent when it comes to the business. Like you hear people telling stories about him, and one of the most interesting ones was that I heard was when Sting was saying that he was going from the surfboard Sting and that transition into the Crow Sting, and he said that Scott Hall said to him, "Yo, I'm not telling you to rip off the Undertaker." but rip off the Undertaker. I do a lousy impersonation of people.
Yeah, you
But
do, man. It's horrible. It's an insult.
Oh, sorry, bitch. But you know what I mean? Like that sort of thing. It's like, you know, being able to point that and help guide in that inner direction as well. You know, a guy who was also very giving and wanting to help the younger guys coming up in the business. And that's something that was always spoken well about Scott.
For sure. He basically said this thing like, hey, have you ever seen The Crow? And he mentioned it to Bischoff too. So he basically invented the character for him, but it was so great because it's like, wow, like what a great idea. Whoever thought of that is a genius. And it was Scott Hall. And he said it would be great if you hit up in the rafters, you're like the hero, but we don't know you're the hero. You're very dark, very disturbed. You don't talk, you don't say much. So I think just an ingenious idea from Hall that Sting knocked out of the park.
Okay. Hey, but just curiosity. I mean, I want to pick John's brain. So in 2008, when they were doing the roast for the Iron Sheik at the Crown Plaza in Jersey, Billy Graham went up on stage and told a joke saying that the Sheik and Hacksaw Jim Duggan got caught snorting cocaine in the parking lot, and their career fell faster than Owen Hart. And Scott Hall jumped on stage and pushed him off the podium and knocked him off. And they got into a huge fight and got the mic and said how disrespectful it was, stuff like that. But at the time, Graham went on his MySpace page and told people that, Scott Hall was drunk at the time of the attack. So have you heard anything about it? And do you know anything deeper into that story?
I've heard though, and I guess that's just like the common thing that Hall, obviously the where they were, what they're doing, they were all having fun, they're all drinking, they're all having fun. But I have heard that story before, and I've heard that Hall was, he was a little drunk and he took that joke to heart, and he didn't like it, and he just kind of snapped and went after Billy Graham for it. Obviously, not a great joke either, by the way, but I just think that happened a lot with Hall. Maybe he would rub people the wrong way. Maybe he buzzed people's balls. But this time he got drunk and he was mad. So he went after superstar Billy Graham. Owen Hart was a friend of his. So I just think he just didn't care for the joke, was drunk. It was a bad combination.
I'm actually just trying to find the video now.
Of what?
I saw a video of it.
Of the attack?
Of the push.
Yeah, it wasn't the attack. It was more of, I think, the vocal thing. Because I remember seeing a video and Scott Hall wasn't anywhere near it, but he was on the microphone going, Owen was a friend of mine, you dumb fuck, and blah blah blah. He wasn't a fucking guy who took gimmicks, and he's like, I mean, he didn't deserve that,
Yeah. He was pissed.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was a touchy thing, but again, I mean, it's hard when you do a roast because a roast is a no holds barred. I mean, I seen celebrity roast, Bob Saget, Donald Trump, and they said some harsh shit like, some really harsh shit. Betty White, when they were roasting Betty White, they tore the shit out of that. Lisa Lampanelli saying how she loves black cock and stuff like that, and they really ripped into her. So it just depends. I mean, the joke is tasteless, but at a roast, it's kind of
anything goes.
It walks that fine line that it's just like teeter-tottering. So it's really hard to like.
You can get away with it.
I've seen some shits on shit said on roast where I'm just like, I get comedy, man, but fuck, you say that to me, bro, I'm gonna fucking rip your heart out.
Like, no, I remember one was like, oh brother, your joke was so dry, like Betty White's pussy. It's just like, what the fuck, But again, it's a roast. I mean, you could definitely see that Comedy Central. Those are the ones that are just knocking out the park. It's just ridiculous. But again, I mean, yeah, I agree with Scott. But yeah, when it's a roast, it's kind of hard. Like, fuck, it's just if it walks that fine line,
Yep. Sometimes they push it a little too far, but they're trying to push the envelope too far.
Yeah,
it's kind of the whole point of the roast. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And
I'm surprised they don't have any more wrestling roast.
They tried a couple years ago. They were going to do one for Flair, and then it fell through. Never happened. Yeah, I'm surprised too.
Yeah, I think that would be fucking entertaining. Go ahead, Pierce.
So Scott Hall, in WC, after he leaves WWF, the curtain call happens. We've discussed that, before on the show. Goes over to WCW, makes his debut. Kevin Nash also debuts. They form the NWO with Hogan. And then they go on to have this monster fucking run with the NWO. And probably the biggest run in Scott's career at that time. Scott Hall was also struggling in that time, as we mentioned, with alcohol abuse, drug abuse, and going through, obviously, as you were saying, John, PTSD from what he'd experienced prior. And that was in the height of his run. You know, and he went into a lot of problems backstage around that time as well, for memory, where they actually incorporated his alcoholism into his character. Because remember, he would actually come out acting
horrible.
belligerent, you know, having a drink in his hand. And that was around the same time where they had Big Show smoking on air.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like,
yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it just hit me like I don't remember that, but then I remember that.
Yeah, like the drinking on air, and then it was like shortly thereafter that they just sort of took him off TV all of a sudden.
Yeah, it was. I don't. I didn't care for that gimmick at all. It was terrible. And he was feuding with Nash at the time, which was so stupid. Nobody wanted to see those two have a feud. They always wanted them to be together. That was just a mess. But apparently, behind the scenes, they were both causing a lot of trouble. Waltman was kind of a victim there because he had his injured neck, so he wasn't wrestling. Then apparently, there was some contract negotiations, and Bischoff just nixed that, and he let Waltman go, which ended up being a huge mistake, letting him go to WWF. That kind of helped turn the tide for WWF big time and put DX on the map, that they're having a former NWO member in friggin' DX. But Hall was having so many problems then. They were sending him to rehab. They were sending him home. They broke up him and Nash supposedly as a punishment, and kind of kept those guys separate. Then they did this thing where he's a drunk on TV and he's drinking, and hated that angle. That's way too personal. Hit too home for me. Then they had him. Remember about a year later or whatever. I think it was the 98, 99. They had him in a psych ward, and they had Flair in the psych ward. Like, I don't know, just a little too close to home for me. A little too silly. Of like, you don't make that into a wrestling gimmick. And Hall and Nash shooting was stupid.
Did you say gimmicks? I love gimmicks.
Yeah, no, you do. But with Hall, though, I mean, he was so important to the NWO. Without him, the NWO doesn't work. He's so cool. His promo on 5/27/96 on Nitro was epic. And you want a war, you got it. Everybody's confused. Everyone's what the hell's going on? And he calls out Bischoff, that Ken doll lookalike. He says he's got some guys coming with him. I mean, without him, it doesn't work. Without him, wrestling was kind of in the doldrums there. It was okay. It was good, but not great. But you inject Hall and Nash in, it's like, holy shit, I'm fucking interested in wrestling. Like, I'm now, like, everyone's getting obsessed again. Everybody's getting into it. Without that happening, you don't get the Attitude Era. So Hall sets off the NWO, sets off this really path of wrestling where it goes on an upward trajectory for years. And WWF can thank Hall, and they can thank Nash, and they can thank Hogan for doing that. And Hogan thanks Scott Hall for reinventing him. He said at that point he was losing his confidence. He was kind of feeling down. People weren't liking Hulkamania as much. He said Hall would say, "You're friggin' Hulk Hogan, man." And he built his confidence back up. So he gave Hall so much credit for Hollywood Hogan, which set the business off even further, because the NWO with Hogan, everyone was talking about, wow, Hogan turned heel. It was in the friggin' newspaper. Hogan turned bad. Like, it was everywhere. So Hall was to thank for that.
Well, I agree with that, but just curiosity, I know, but when I heard about it, originally it was offered to Sting.
That's a rumor. So I obviously do a show with Sullivan, who's the booker, and he said that yes, that idea was thrown around with Sting. But he said in his mind, as the booker and Bischoff, same thing. He said you could throw the Sting name around if Hogan didn't want to do it. Hogan was the number one guy. It was the only guy that they said it would work with, which they obviously were correct. But he said Sting was like the backup plan. But he said he never even considered him ever. And when Meltzer when Meltzer reported Mabel, obviously somebody fed him bad information just to make him look bad. And he threw out Mabel. And if you read the sheets back then, he threw out Bret Hart's name. He threw out Yokozuna. He threw out Luger. He threw out Davey Boy Smith. Some of those guys were WWF free agents at the time. So it made sense. But obviously somebody was feeding Meltzer bad names. Probably Terry Taylor was feeding him bad names.
The thing I was thinking is because I remember that Sting apparently said that, he was more concerned about his image in regards to being the franchise Sting, and how that was going to be a big fall. Now, I agree with you with the Hogan situation. Like, if he was the first pick, because it was almost like the Andre the Giant situation. That's why it became so big at WrestleMania 3, because he was bigger than light as a babyface. And then he turns into this massive heel, just like made the fans go crazy. So the same thing. Hogan was at that level of like the baby face, clean cut and stuff. And then him doing the turn made it. I think it's the same thing if they did it to Ricky Steamboat, because Ricky Steamboat was never a heel.
I don't think it would have worked with like a Ricky Steamboat. It needed to be.
I'm not talking. No, I'm not talking about him being in the
Oh, no.
NWO. I'm just talking like since Ricky Steamboat was never a heel, he was always the ultimate baby face. Like let's say right now, if he came back as just like like a commentator and stuff, and then he became a manager and turned into a heel, that it's a big thing because he never was a heel. So
Oh,
that
yeah.
becomes big heat. I
But
just think it's just that's how I just visually see it that way.
yeah, look, I think with the NWO, the names that get thrown around like Sting and the others that John mentioned, if they put anyone else in that Hulk Hogan spot besides Hulk Hogan, NWO would not have become what it was.
No. Nope.
No way in the world.
Nope.
The thing is, with Hogan being that main sort of being, take your vitamins, say your prayers, work out every day, and then having him, the ultimate baby face, turning heel, that's the main thing that catapulted, and I believe for the NWO, that massive shock.
And that just changed the business. But if it's funny, it's like without Hogan doesn't work. But you take Hall out of there, to me, it doesn't work either. He's the cool
100%.
factor. Nash is like the heater. Like, he's like the big dude who's going to kick everybody's ass. But Hall is like the cool dude. Like, okay, this friggin' is awesome. He makes it work. Everything he does is just pure NWO. And literally, I hate, and I mentioned this before, I hate when these idiots, they go, oh, Keith Lee's a game changer. Adam Cole's a game changer. None of those motherfuckers are game changers. Scott Hall is the friggin' game changer. Literally, when he cuts that promo, the business changes forever. Him and Nash, the guaranteed money. Him and Nash, which is kind of around before them, but they made it more prominent, and they made it where, like, guys, you deserve what you deserve. And like the merchandising of the NWO shirts, just them cutting the cool promos, them doing the black and white videos, them doing everything that was so damn cool about the NWO, completely changed the business forever. And WWF took notice and was like, shit, like we need to start copying these guys. And Russo admitted it too. He said, we were watching the NWO. I was like, okay, what could we copy off the NWO? Guess what comes next? Austin versus McMahon, which is wrestlers versus the system. NWO, wrestlers versus the system. Heel Vince McMahon is a ripoff, and I know people are going to say, oh, he did the heel gimmick in Memphis. That is a direct ripoff of Eric Bischoff being the heel in charge of WCW. I mean, it is a direct copy, so you get that.
So much. Did Bischoff turn heel before McMahon, though?
Oh, way before.
Yeah, way before. But what's funny is that the NWO originated.
96, he turns heel.
Right.
Vince doesn't turn heel until late fall of 97.
But the funny thing is that the NWO originally started in Japan with oh my God, Chono. Chono. And that's what it was huge out there. And I think the vision was like, man, we could bring that bitch over here. It's just almost like when a movie, like a TV show is popular in England and they convert it into an American version and it becomes big out here. So
but the invasion angle is so great because Hall at first, you know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here. So everyone knows, like in your head, that's fucking Razor Ramon. Everybody knows Razor Ramon. And then he's got his big friend comes, a week or two later, and it's Diesel. So, but they don't say that they're Razor Ramon and Diesel, very smart. And then when Hogan turns, everyone equates Hogan with the North. Everyone equates Hogan with WWF because literally he created the WWF that everyone knew that blew off and made so much money. So it's like, okay, who's next? The Giant being in it kind of throws you off a little bit where it's like, okay, that doesn't make sense, but he's Hogan's protege. Hogan's going to get him in movies and stuff. But then it's even before the Giant's DiBiase, but you get DiBiase, WWF guy, and then Giant and Six. I mean, so it's WWF guy. So you're thinking it's an invasion angle. So it's ingenious without saying it. Obviously, McDavid gets a hold of that and they sue them and they end up getting some money out of it. But still, it's ingenious to think about it without Razor doing it. I don't think it works at all to begin with. Like you throw another guy in there, even if Nash debuted first, I don't think it would have worked. It's got to be Hall.
But what's funny about? Let me just ask this question: how does WWE sue WCW, and for what are they suing them for?
Exactly. Gimmick infringement, likeness, saying that it was the Razor, Ramon, and Diesel characters.
But they never said those names. They never said that this is Razor and Diesel.
Right, but notoriously, WCW's and Turner's lawyers would just like give into anything, and I think McDivitt's smart enough to know that. So it's like you just throw it out there, and they're in trouble. WWF at this point, they're not doing well, and WCW's killing them. So why not try that angle and try to kill this?
I mean, what's the difference? What's the difference between DDP suing fucking Jay-Z for this
diamond?
Symbol? Yeah. And he was trying to sue because Jay-Z was your Rockefeller, and they were doing that. And DDP was going to, I don't know if he won or anything, but I'm just saying he was suing him because he said that was gimmick infringement. But again, But that's all. I mean, that's just you can sue for anything, man, as long as if you can have justify what's going on. But the thing that made me pop the most about Scott Hall was when he loved the fake razor. He was so happy about the fake razor because the point is that when Jim Ross said on the air next week, I return of Razor Ramon, those motherfuckers at WCW didn't even fucking know what was going on. Thought that Scott Hall was jumping ship.
Yep.
And they fucking renegotiated his contract and gave him more money. And he goes, I love that guy, because it just gave him more money in the bank, So I always pop when he told that story. Like, I didn't know what was going on, and then he just renegotiated my contract.
Who was the fake Razor? It was
Rick
August?
Rick Bogner, yeah. He was
And the
Rick
fake-
Titan. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the fake Diesel was fucking Kane, after oh my god, Isaac Yankem,
Yep.
DDS, yeah. I think right it was after that, right?
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Did you pick that like when you saw it, John? When you saw like Kane come out as like the fake Diesel, were you like,
Well, we didn't know he was Kane.
Isaac, no, we like, oh, that's Isaac Yankem.
Yeah, I knew. It was accurate.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's literally him with black hair, even though he still had the curly hair. Of course. I just thought it so funny because you're doing a fake Razor and a fake Diesel, which is basically, to me, admitting like, okay, the guys over here, the real Razor and the real Diesel, are so much up here. We're going to imitate them, which puts us down here. That's like when they did the fake Hogan and the fake Macho Man.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
Nacho
that means
Man.
that means Nacho Man, the Huckster. That means WCW up here, and you guys are down here. You're like the imitators trying to knock down the guys above you. That's what I always took it as. Like when you imitate somebody like that, I just always think you're trying to knock off somebody bigger than you.
Just curiosity. I mean, with the fake Razor and the fake Diesel, I'm surprised. How come Kane's career excelled? Because usually when you do some type of gimmick like that, that's when your career goes to the shitter, basically. But
so
his
when
career
he
took
went back
off.
down to Smoky Mountain, though, and he wrestled Undertaker over there. Undertaker was such an advocate, and he needed guys to work with that were big and good and his size. And it's like, man, he goes, this guy's friggin' great. And Cornette, who was working for them at the time, was like, this guy is great. So it didn't work out at first, but Taker told him, he goes, just trust the process here. They're going to give you a shit gimmick, which never happened to him, by the way, which is funny that he said that because WWF never really gave him a bad gimmick, but he said, just trust the process. This happens. Like they may give you something shitty, but take it, get on their radar, and they'll eventually find something. And Bruce Pritchard loved them too. And Bruce Pritchard's like, I got this Kane character that would be great. Undertaker loved it, but Undertaker was his like biggest advocate. So I think if you have an advocate like that and you have a shitty gimmick, Undertaker's like, no, give this guy something else. Fake Diesel, like, no, fuck that. Give this guy something else. Like he was his advocate. He loved him. He thought he was great.
You got to look at it from this perspective, though. I mean, you say they never gave the Undertaker a shit gimmick, but the Undertaker, you got to look at it from a fine tooth comb.
Idea of it is not great.
Yeah, because if you look at Goldust, man, you motherfucker, that was the shitty. People are like, oh man, this is fucking bullshit.
Awful, yeah, but he made it good. Yeah,
he made it good. He made it happen. But that first, put it this way.
If you were to write it down and say it, it sucks. Like the Undertaker, like that is the corniest, stupidest shit ever. And then when you see it and see him do it, like, okay, this is the greatest gimmick of all time. Same with Goldust. It's like, what is this character? This Hollywood stupid bullshit. And then when you see the character and he actually portrays you, like, this is fucking great. That's what I think. Yeah.
But so many wrestlers that you see, sorry, Angel, but so many wrestlers that you see or characters that you see on paper are ridiculous. Like, could you imagine like reading about Val Venus? A male porn star that comes out, gyrates to the ring, says, hello, ladies, has a match, gets his penis cut off. You know what I mean? Like,
but the penis thing came after. The thing is that the presentation, because when I first got offered the job I remember like it was yesterday, Paul was standing in front of me, told me like, hey man, we're thinking about bringing an Insane Clown Posse in to work with us. I have an idea for you that you're going to be the bodyguard of the Insane Clown Posse, just stand in the background like a Virgil and stuff like that. And you're going to be in face paint, and but right now we're negotiating a deal with them. But what do you think? That part right there. What do you think? What do you think I'm going to fucking say? Well, that's the most stupidest gimmick I ever heard. Or, okay, boss, so you know what? I love it. It's whatever. Hey, that sounds great. So the same thing is the Undertaker, all those gimmicks at the time when it's first on written paper, you look at it and go, in your mind, you're like, oh, are you fucking serious? And you look up and go, hey, I'm with you, boss. I mean, it looks wonderful because you don't want to shit on the hand that feeds you. So, but of course, he made it his own. But at the beginning stage, I'd probably be like, man, Undertaker, come out with some fat dude with a fucking urn. Oh,
Taker was telling him, like, come on, give it, like, fake Diesel, give this guy something. I need somebody to work with. I like this guy. I wrestled him Smoky Mountain. He was Unabomb. He's awesome. Like, do something. So eventually, Bruce had this idea for Kane, which is funny because that's his kid's name, Kane. So it tells you how much he likes that name. But you see the drawing he had of Kane and the way it looked.
Yeah, that's what I was
originally. And it's funny because originally he was Kane the Undertaker when he first debuted. So, like they always had that name in their mind that they wanted to use it. And then they had that character, that awesome drawing of Kane. It's like Undertaker's probably like, give him this gimmick and I'll feud with him and it'll be great.
And that's the funny thing, because like you said, when you look at the drawing and they present it to you, but look at FTR. Remember that gimmick that they wanted to give him with the green thing?
Horrible,
but that's what I'm talking about. That's the presentation. They give it to you. You look at it, either you're going to accept it and walk away or go, because you don't know if it's going to take off or not, but you go, Jesus Christ. But again, what if they would have said, would it took off? Heck no, but we never know, because it could have been something morph into something else. It's just weird. That's all. It's just funny when it's on paper. You're like, fuck.
So just bringing us back to track here onto Scott Hall. Scott Hall's run with Kevin Nash as the tag team champions, they had some really, really solid matches as a tag team as well. And considering both guys weren't teaming before in WWF, and they weren't even ever on the same page besides maybe being opponents a few times, but for them to come in there, establish this tag team, get it over as the outsiders, and have matches like with the Steiners, Harlem Heat, and have really solid, entertaining matches.
I'm just curious. Like, what did you determine that makes them a great tag team in regards to that aspect? Because I mean, like the way you worded it. Like, I'm just curious. I'm just picking your brain, because you say like they never worked with each other. They got together and they had solid matches. Do you really think they were solid matches? All they did was doing is elbow, boot, punch, punch, punch. They was not doing anything extraordinary. Hot tag, in and out. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, look, I think that they got themselves over there, mate. Like, so yeah, the matches could have been basic, but even again, if you're getting the reaction, you call that a good match, though, wouldn't you?
Well, I'm just saying, because because I'm in the business, your eye is outside the business. So I'm picking your brain to see, like, okay, what do you see that I don't? Because what I see is, great tag team, great story, but
watch Halloween Havoc 96. Watch them against Harlem Heat. That's a great match.
That is
obviously
a great match.
Booker and Hall are like expert, I'd say, top of the line workers. And Nash and Steve very obviously can hold their own too. I mean, but Booker and Scott Hall are like top notch. I think that match is great. Sting and not Sting, Luger and the Giant against the Outsiders, Super Bowl 7, I think is great. A bunch of matches, really. I did a bunch of good matches with the Steiners, Sting and Luger.
Not the Steiners, but it's the dancing partner that you're with,
right?
Because everybody thinks the Natural Disasters were a great tag team, and I was like, they're okay, but they were just bouncing around and stuff. Yeah, but that's all. I mean, it's just I'm trying to see what your eye was, what caught your attention. That's all.
For me, getting the reaction, getting the thing about Hall was he was able to get a reaction from you. I can remember being a teenager watching him come out and go, "Hey yo, survey says," and I used to go, "Man, this guy's such a fucking asshole," and I hated him, and I couldn't understand why.
Really? I had the exact opposite. Me and my buddy, we literally, because we're basically about to be in high school at this point, literally obsessed with wrestling, obsessed with Scott Hall's tits, with the NWO. We literally were like, okay, we're the NWO, and we had a friend of ours that literally looked like Waltman if Waltman was younger. So we're like, you're 6, and we're like doing all this other stuff, and I was like, oh, I'm Hall, and he's like, no, I'm Hall. And we're like arguing and fighting over who's going to be Hall. We had to flip a coin, and that asshole won. So I got to be Nash, but I was like, I wanted to be Hall. I wanted to be cool like Scott Hall. And then one of our other friends is Hogan, but we all had NWO shirts. Even when we played football, we got the NWO shirts underneath. And then everyone's like, oh, you guys are like a gang, but not really. Like, a little wrestling gang you guys got together. But we'd all pretend we were the NWO. But it was funny. We were literally fighting over who was going to be Scott Hall, and we had to do a coin flip. Like, we're like, no, I'm Hall. He's the coolest. No, like, we're obsessed. But I can't believe you hated him. We used to say this to everybody, like, hey, yo, everyone's like, what the hell does that mean? We're like, survey says one more for the good guys. All the Scott Hall stuff. Too sweet for life. I mean, we copied everything he said.
Yeah, and I just think it's because of their promos. Sometimes there's wrestlers who can't wrestle but cut great promos and cut good heat and get just great heat. And
I think he could do both. I think he'd do everything. He's a 5-tool player to me.
Yeah,
Scotty
yeah,
Hall.
absolutely. But I'm just saying, like, that's how the chips fall. But again, I mean, I'm not knocking their wrestling abilities and stuff. I think they're great tag team. It's just that I didn't think they were like the phenomenal, like awesome. But again, the dancing partners, the Harlem Heats, the Steiners,
Steiners, yeah.
when you have great partners to wrestle against, then it's just you tell a good story and you just work off each other. So, like I said, they were a great tag team. It was just I was just wondering what you saw that made them such, your wording. That's all.
I love
I mean,
the Outsiders.
I think for me, like, I enjoyed their work. Like I said, Hall, to me, I did hate him because he was that heel. When he was cutting those heel type promos, I fell into it, man. I was a 14, 15-year-old mark. So, I mean, I bought in hook, line, and sinker. But I remember as the Outsiders as a tag team, still hated them, like as individuals or whatever. But then as I got older and I started understanding and appreciating pro wrestling on a different level, and that changed.
Yeah, and it's funny when people tell me like the thing that makes me laugh a little bit is like when they say, and I'm not knocking RVD, but when they were like, RVD's the greatest wrestler of all times, blah blah blah, whatever. And I'm like, man, when I was in the ring with him, that motherfucker stiffed the shit out of me, gave me the boot,
Yeah.
and I dropped to one knee, and I looked down, and I'm like, and I shook my head, and I looked up with this evil look, like this motherfucker, it's on. And the thing is that that's why I'm like, do you think he's a solid worker? Yeah, he's a solid worker when he stiffs you. But it's just that's just my mindset. I think he's a great wrestler. It just makes me laugh because of his stiffness. But yeah, man, Kevin Nash. I mean, like I said, regardless of what his career done, he has made a mark in this business. He will always be legendary. NWO will be for life. That's just. No, all of it. He is the founding father of the NWO. He is the staple of professional wrestling. He's the one that made wrestling what it is today because of the NWO and Kevin Nash and Hulk Hogan. But they're all a piece. They're a piece of a puzzle. Without either one, it would not happen. So I'm just saying he's immortalized forever. I mean, the NWO t-shirts will go on sale forever. Scott Hall, Harry O. Everybody's gonna say that forever. He will always live in people's hearts forever. So
did you see the WWF merchandise thing from this past year?
Yeah, they fucking that body is not even fucking cold, and them motherfuckers are jumping on that fucking pavement.
Well, not even that. The money made from certain guys. So NWO made over $1 million in merchandise. NWO hasn't been a thing in over 20 years. Steve Austin was their number one seller. This is online sales. This is not in the arena. If you count the arena, Roman Reigns is number one seller. But online sales, Austin sold 3 million. NWO was like 1.2 million. So like the biggest merchandise sellers online are the guys from the 90s that were the most popular. NWO, who set it off, and Austin from the Attitude Era. It's like, wow, people just cannot get over that era. Not that I can't get over it either, but it's just crazy to think. Like,
I go back and watch reruns.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
I think I think just a little bit that is a little bit like insensitive. No, insensitive to like put the T-shirt out now.
I agree. Unless you're donating it to Hall's family.
I mean, at least say something. Yeah. I mean, I looked it up because I saw it and I'm like, oh shit, let me look at that shit. And then it's just like, hey, on selling, not like, hey, a portion of the proceeds will go to the. I mean, I know he's gonna get money for it, but still, the body's not even cold yet for them to just try to make money off his.
Right. If they said they were donating 50% to Cody and his daughter or something, like that would be great. Cody Hall and
fuck it. They could have said, hey, donating a percentage of the revenue to alcoholism, mental health,
right.
Whatever they wanted to kind of like trigger that. But you could just tell that they're just trying to again, not knocking it. It's just I think it was a little bit tasteless. They should have waited a little bit longer before they did that.
So I think we're going to have to do a part 2, by the way. We're going to have to talk about, I literally spent 24 hours with Hall by myself one day. So I got some great Hall stories there. Some Dudley Boy stories, some WCW stories, obviously the downfall of Hall, and even what I was reading from Meltzer's bit about the end of his life. So I think we should do a part 2 of Scott Hall because there's so much more meat on the bone, so many more stories we didn't discuss. But why don't we wind up this one?
Absolutely. Because you guys were so excited to do this episode that you forgot to do the sponsors. So don't put the heat on me. I put it on you two. Just letting you guys know. I'm just bringing
it. Angel, because you pointed out, why don't you cover both sponsors right now?
First of all, why don't you open your eyes and stop falling asleep on the show, and we can definitely focus on this.
I haven't slept in 24 hours. Hey, my words are a bit slow.
Like you smoke weed. Like, hey, brother, why don't you just do like?
Shut the fuck up and do the sponsor read.
Bring it up, man. Hey, everybody, definitely for you guys on the health kick, definitely check out healthvape.com. I mean, it's one of the greatest websites out there. If you want a vaping alternative, they have all kinds of products that boost energy, vitality, restore. Use MWA code MWA pod for 10% off. It doesn't have any preservatives, doesn't have any nicotine in it. Definitely check them out. It's the best thing on the planet. I can't change my wording today.
And check out sleefs.com. That's SLEEFS, sleefs.com. If you or someone you know is an athlete, then sleefs.com is the place for you, the place for them, the place for absolutely everybody. They've got athletic wear and equipment. You can get compression pants, compression shorts, compression socks, arm sleeves, headbands, mouth guards, boots. They've even got dirty boxes, and they have sent me boxes of these dirty fucking boxes, and I have to say they are the most comfortable boxes that I own, that I fucked off all the rest of my boxes, and I only wear dirty boxes. So guys, check out sleeps.com. Use promo code MWAPOD to get a 10% discount on your final purchase.
All right, man. So we're definitely going to do part 2 on this episode of Wrestling with Tragedy, case number B102, or would it be 101? What do you think? It'll still be 101 part 2?
101,
Yeah.
2. 102.
101 and a half?
102.
I like that Cheramana shirt. I beg you to promote the brand without getting a sponsorship. Anyway.
Rock, come on, Rock. Rocky.
Well,
we could.
What?
Rock watches our show. Come on.
Oh, no, come on. Absolutely. Well, anyway, we'll see you guys next week. Definitely check out part 2 of the Scott Hall story. We love you. We'll check you. Peace out.
This is Vince Russo's The Brand.